None. Item 5, council committee structure. Is Mary coming up to the front? Thank you very much.
Great.
Staff speak to report.
Shall I just start? Okay. This report is just presenting the Mayor's decision on the governance committee structure for Christchurch City Council for this triennial. The decision has been made under Section 41A of the Local Government Act and in accordance with Schedule 7 of the Local Government Act. The Mayor has identified that he's, and you'll see in the memo, that this structure, he believes, is the best way to enable efficient and effective decision making and also facilitate transparency and also community participation in decision making. Councillors will also be aware that there were some further discussions between the Mayor and councillors about this, and therefore the Mayor has actually made some recommendations regarding minor amendments, and these he's proposing that these are made under Schedule 7, Section 31 of the Local Government Act. So they are now on the screen there. Also added, you will just note that there are draft terms of reference attached to this report, as well as the calendar for the triennial.
Is this on the hub, Mary, the updated one?
No, but Sam can pop it
You can
up
circulate
on the
it.
hub.
Just because
circulate
you can't get all the recommendations there on the screen, but if they could email it, that would be fine. But cool.
Okay. So I just ask for questions.
So do you want us to just walk through those one by one if people haven't read them, those amendments?
I think that would be helpful, Mary.
Okay,
We'll just
so
email it out
the first amendment is just something that is just noting around the council hearing panel, which will comprise of all elected members. So that's mayor, councillors and community board members, with the delegation to select hearing panels sitting with the manager of hearings and council support. So that just allows us to quickly and efficiently establish hearing panels for different matters. It's the same procedure that happened last triennial. The next one is about agreeing that Councillor Barber be appointed as the Deputy Chair for Health, Safety and Wellbeing Committee, and that Councillor Peters remains a member of the committee, and it also notes that this has been done at the request of Councillor Peters to be discharged from that rather than anybody doing that. So that was his request. It agrees that Councillor McCullen be discharged from Te Hohunga Committee and Councillor Donovan be appointed to that committee. The next one, number 7, agrees that the Chair of the Finance and Performance Committee be appointed as a member of Te Hohunga Committee, and that Councillor Coker be discharged from that committee, noting that the Deputy Chair, who is Councillor Coker, will deputise for the Chair if he's unable to attend that meeting. The next one, number 8, is a request that staff provide advice regarding the option to establish a youth committee, and that advice includes the potential terms of reference and membership. The next one is to establish a suburban regeneration portfolio with Councillor Donovan as the portfolio lead. And the next recommendation 10, is requests that staff provide advice on the establishment of additional portfolios, including but not limited to the arts and culture portfolio, noting that that staff advice will describe the nature and the benefits of any additional portfolio. Just also recommendation number 11 notes that the terms of reference for all portfolio leads will be further refined and agreed by council. And also a last recommendation is just noting that the first meeting of Finance and Performance Committee is scheduled for the 30th of November at 9:30 in the council chambers.
Thank you very much, Mary. Right, Melanie and Pauline. Sorry, Pauline first, Melanie second.
You need a mover and seconder.
Sorry.
I was just going to move an amendment, please, that Jake McClellan be appointed a member of the Chief Executive Performance Committee there, because I think it's a better balance in numbers, and I'd like to have the support of Jake on that, along with Sam and Jamie and the Mayor.
Okay, so Pauline and Tim. So do I talk about that now?
No, I don't.
Mr. Mayor, can I just get clarity in terms of like standing orders? Are these your appointments, or are they a council decision, or is it Mayor's appointments? I'm just unclear with where that is.
So the proposal was the Mayor's proposal, so it was a decision the Mayor made under Section 4A, which he is entitled to do. These are additional recommendations are made under Section Schedule 7, where the council as a whole has the ability to recommend and make decisions on membership of committees.
Okay, so it's like the deputy mayor kind of thing. The mayor
Yes.
can appoint
Yep.
it, but then if the council wants to
Yep.
undermine it, they can.
Yes, it's a clunky piece of legislation. Yeah.
So my intention is definitely not to undermine the Mayor. My intention is to actually help by getting a more balanced committee here, and I just want to reiterate that.
I'm sure it'll be viewed that way.
Righto. So we've got a mover and seconder for an amendment. So is there any discussion on that? Do we do that? Or do we just go straight to...
Oh, sorry. If we move
No,
to...
just, I think we have to do each one, don't we? Then we go.
No,
No,
we'll
we
do
have
the amendment first.
Amendment first.
Let's do the amendment first, and then it will become the
Sorry, yeah, apologies. We need to get the mover and seconder for the other,
The
the
main bit?
original.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
Sorry, that was mine.
So,
So have you got a mover and seconder?
I'll move it. Tim will second it. So now what do I do?
If you're happy to include Jake in that committee, it doesn't need to be an amendment. You
Yeah.
can just include it if you just decide to.
No, but I can now ask for the amendment to be voted on.
Yes, you can.
That's right. So is there any discussion on the amendment? Yeah.
Is there a seconder for the amendment?
Yes.
I just want to be clear
No,
when we're
Tim's
asking
moved the
questions of the new recommendations. Are we doing that now, or do you want to vote on amendments first?
The amendment first, Yanni.
Questions of Mary?
And just point of order on this, the mayor's moved his recommendations. It's been seconded by Councillor Standard. Pauline's moved an amendment. There needs to be a seconder for the amendment.
Councillor Templeton.
Templeton.
Sarah's seconded it. Perfect.
That's correct.
I agree with Sam, though. Let's let the Mayor speak to them.
Are there any further questions?
Is there
of
any
Mary?
any further questions of Mary? Paul, Sarah? And then Mel?
Thanks, Mary. I'm just interested in the portfolios. So there's a very brief kind of rationale for doing the portfolios, but there's no terms of reference, and we'll work on those. But why those specific portfolios and not something like Sport and Rec, for example, or why those particular 5 at this stage?
So my understanding, but the Mayor may be able to add to this and clarify, but my understanding was that the Mayor identified these portfolios on 2 bases. One was following his discussions with councillors when they were in that first week, but also to identify areas that were of particular focus in terms of population groups that needed to be considered across each decision. So that was youth, disability with the Accessibility Committee, and also multicultural groups, and also other areas that were actually such as climate change or issues that needed to be considered in every decision, or the impact of it to be considered in every decision. So there was a councillor always focusing on those things in decision making. It wasn't to actually appoint somebody to focus on an area where we actually have an organisational structure, such as sport and recreation, where there is a unit, there's a focus area, you've got policy advice coming through about that, and you'll have specific papers. And so we don't want to duplicate an organisational structure with a portfolio. So this is actually about cross-cutting. So I don't know whether... Yes.
We're just trying to streamline the place to make it a lot less work for staff, and we have people who are passionate, want to champion a particular area of council, and that's where I've tried to put people that have got a genuine interest in a particular area.
Okay, so next question. In 2021, there was a Peter Winder review into the governance of Wellington City Council, which had some really quite strong things to say about the use of portfolios in Wellington and how that interfered with some of the staff, their work, and had some governance issues. And I'm wondering what mitigations have been put in place so that we don't face the same issues.
So that is why there's the recommendation about clarity about roles. So that report mentioned things around uncertainty about roles and accountabilities of portfolio holders, the impact on productivity and efficiency of staff, unequal access to information, and confusion about councillor and staff roles. So those were the key things that they identified about their portfolios. That is the reason why there's the additional recommendation that the Mayor's put forward to actually make further clarity for portfolio holders and the rest of council about the roles of portfolio holders, so we don't get into those sort of situations.
Yeah, and that's likely to include accountability for those with the roles as well, and that sort of maybe quarterly reporting to council, so that there's the opportunity for that transparency and accountability in the roles too.
Yep, so the initial brief about that had a more annual reporting, but there will be some consideration whether that is regular enough and whether quarterly reporting is required, so that will come back in that advice.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Templeton, for raising that. We are absolutely fully aware of the Wellington report, and we are considering those matters in terms of the further advice if council adopts these portfolios or any others.
Melanie.
A few different things. I was wondering for the resolution around the youth committee, if that could, that's probably fine, but I was wondering if it could be reworded about the continuation of the Te Paipakari committee.
So in the legislation, unless the council makes a resolution before the end of the last triennial to continue a committee, they are automatically disestablished. So they actually cease being placed unless there's a resolution. You'll remember that you had a resolution at your September council meeting that continued a number of committees, some of those which have been slightly amended in the Mayor's decision, and some of them we have noted will come back with further advice on. So that committee wasn't one of those committees that the council in the last triennial decided to continue, so therefore it would need to be re-established as opposed to discontinued.
Okay, I was unaware of that. Has the youth community been talked to about, they assumed that the committee was continuing, as had I actually, but have they been talked to?
No, so they will be definitely in that advice about the committee. We will talk to the youth sector and maybe the wider youth sector around that committee, what its form and makeup could be.
Okay. And then my following one is along the same lines with the multicultural committee, and has that community been talked to about us not continuing that multicultural committee from last term?
My understanding is yes, and the PAG group, the Multicultural Advisory Group, has continued, so that's the community side of that. And I think the Mayor and some councillors met with them last evening. Yep. So my understanding that yes, they do that has been discussed with them, but I can clarify that for sure.
Yeah. So I'd like to either move as another recommendation or adjust number 8 to also include about a multicultural committee, so we can seek advice about that with terms of reference and membership. Pretty much the same wording as 8, or added in.
Do you like that? Just
I guess a
added?
separate resolution would make sense, wouldn't it?
Or added on to 8.
Or maybe make it separate if someone likes youth, but
If it's just advice, just
okay, added in.
advice, just
Added in.
To establish a youth committee and a multicultural committee.
it's only the advice around it.
Okie dokie. What have we got? Yanni.
Thank you. I was just trying to align with the justification for the portfolios with what we've heard from staff, given that Central City's got massive staff resource going into it, so does suburban regen, and so does sustainability. So I'm just sort of trying to understand further the justification for the portfolios, given that there is actually a huge part of the organisation that's focused on the Central City, and yet we're still being told that there's a portfolio on that. So how does that provide efficiency? And how is that different to sports and recreation or the community sector?
So my understanding, but this is the, I don't know, the Mayor, do you want to answer this first, or shall I answer it? So my understanding, but this is not, this was not a portfolio that I established, but my understanding is that it is an area that actually requires particular attention, and it's another area that actually spans an across-unit focus. So we have issues around safety, which is in one unit, issues around youth and youth activity, which is in another group and area, and also around capital development and capital project and vertical, and also about transport. So it's an area that requires particular coordinated and focus across it rather than a single group of activities. So it doesn't fall within one group of activities, it stretches across, it spans across a number of activity groups. Is that, I don't know whether the proposed portfolio holder or Mayor want to add to that.
Okay, Sam? Sorry, did you have another one?
Yanni's got more questions.
No, you go. So I guess what I'm struggling to understand is why is there like the arts and culture one where we're saying get further advice, but we've not had any of the advice on any of the others? Because you've got an additional one like the suburban regeneration, which we also have. I mean, I'm not against it. It's just I find it strange that one would be added, but the other one won't. I don't understand the logic behind it. Either we want advice for all the portfolios, or we don't get advice for half of them and only for the ones that haven't been allocated, which doesn't seem to make much sense.
But some of the...
Aren't we... Maybe I've missed the point a wee bit. I sort of thought the whole idea was to make the council effectively more efficient and have them through committees. But if there are people with areas where they can add value in terms of portfolios, they will feed that through to council. So this, and that was going to be my question, so I probably should have gone before you. This isn't hard and fast in terms of it's locked in for good. This is about actually getting on and doing something now, and then testing it as we go. So it's not like we're going to get to the end of 3 years and nothing be changed like last term, where we're going to have the review mid-time. This will be, the staff will bring back some advice around what works and what doesn't, and if we need to tweak it, we will. Unless I've got something completely wrong.
Right, and if
I
we need
don't think every council was aware that you were going to have a system of allocating portfolios, and also there were other portfolios like the arts and culture that was raised at the same time yesterday as the suburb region one that's not been included for today.
Right, so you would have had to been living under a rock.
Point of order, shouldn't the Mayor be answering questions, or Mary rather than Sam? I find that quite...
well, Sam is answering the question that I was going to say, but one of the main reasons that we're doing this portfolio thing is to make things, as I said, a lot more streamlined. We've got a lot of committees and structures that are going alongside each other, and we want to stop a lot of the work for staff. I'm certainly not saying that things will stop. If there's a need for something going forward, we will create it going forward and we'll change it. This is not set in concrete. If something is fluid and we want to move it around a bit, we certainly will. And I appreciate all the feedback that I can get as we go forward. This is just a starting point.
10 is coming back to council?
Sorry, when what?
When item 10 is coming back to council?
The staff will aim to get that advice to councillors within the next fortnight.
And I've got a question on number 10 too, so just...
Okay, so it's Tim. All done, Sam?
And just the only question I had was for the Chief Executive around the deputation. We had the deputation from the Living Wage Group, and in the terms of reference for a number of the committees, it is made explicit that we cannot delegate the remuneration and employment policy. But I just wanted to check what the process was around us if we wanted to adopt a policy around remuneration and employment, what the right process would be or resolution would be to get us to consider that.
You'd have to seek staff advice for that, Councillor Johansson.
Right.
If you wish to put an amendment to that effect, we can then do the staff advice.
Yeah.
Sam, are you done? Enough? Okay. Andre.
Thank you. Yeah, it was mentioned yesterday would need advice on 9 and 10. Am I right in understanding that advice has come through since yesterday on number 9 but not number 10?
Mary?
I can't answer that. So these are decisions that have been made and a recommendation and a decision made by the Mayor to establish the Suburban Generation Portfolio Committee with the proposed portfolio holder, so that's a Mayor's decision.
Okay, that's the decision I made. Yep.
Right. Thank you.
And Tim.
Yeah, thank you. With number 10, the arts and culture portfolio, it's such a diverse community, and even Creative New Zealand have missed a number of the key art areas, which is quite staggering really when you think it's a government, technically a government agency. So I'd really like the key there for number 10 for me, irrelevant of individuals around this table's view on it. I'd really like to get the staff at the coalface's view on it and the best way forward, because I think that's, I'm just clarifying, because, you know, everyone's got an opinion, but a lot of people aren't actually on the coalface. So I think it's absolutely essential to get the feedback from those organisations through our staff. So I'm just highlighting that.
Tyler?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a quick question, just to clarify here. With these portfolios, I appreciate that it's all a work in progress, which is fantastic. And there is a change, and I know there's going to be growing pains. I'm wondering if there could be some sort of actions related to that. Meaning, I think yesterday we were discussing about the potential of councillors expressing interest. But maybe we could get staff to provide portfolios and then councillors express their interest through that means. That way it's a lot more cleaner. And then there's set boundaries and portfolios on where the council could be looking at. That's just my thought.
So could I just clarify that question? Are you suggesting that in number 10, councillors may submit other areas alongside arts and culture that they would like some advice on the pros and cons of establishing this portfolio?
Across the board, in every sector, and your thoughts on the feasibility of those portfolios. We'd love advice on that.
So it may delay that advice coming back if we get hundreds of suggestions, but if there's only a few suggestions, we could certainly get that back. But if we get a multitude of suggestions about portfolios, it will take us some time to actually review what that would be, what the implications or what the benefits of it would be.
I also appreciate Councillor Scandrett's thoughts on how broad arts and culture could be. And I know it's going to be work in progress on it. I know it's not going to take, one day. But I would really appreciate advice from staff on what they think about the portfolios and where we could be going, and then we provide our thoughts on that.
I go along with what Mary said. We've got to be careful. We'll have a portfolio on changing the toilet paper in the toilet. We're not careful. And that every time we do this, staff have got a myriad of work that they've got to do. So we've just got to be a wee bit realistic. Sam?
Yeah, just to clarify, Mary, in terms of those portfolios and that they would still sit under the first part of the Local Government Act where the Mayor has discretion to establish the committees
Yes, yeah.
and the
So,
structure. Wouldn't he?
so the mayor doesn't have to only exercise his powers at the beginning of a triennial. He can exercise those powers under the 41A at any point.
I think that's useful because it just clarifies it's not hard and fast set in stone now. But if there are areas where it can be, that's useful. Thanks, Mary. Yeah.
Pauline?
Just going to the suburban regeneration portfolio, so all the other ones have got deputies and members. Are you intending to look at that today, or
No portfolio has deputies or members.
Portfolios don't have it.
The
What's that?
portfolio, not a committee.
But you'd want Celeste here. She's the lead on it.
right? Okay, no, that's good.
Lead, not chairman.
Yeah, no, but if we were going to talk about membership, etc., she would have to absolutely be leading that.
Tyrone.
Just to clarify, the portfolios are not committees or working groups. They are a single person who is a champion for something. If a working group is formed, that's a different process. So if there was a particular piece of work that a portfolio lead identified a working group had to be established for, that would be brought to council to establish a working group. So at the moment, they're just single portfolio leads or champions for a particular area.
And so to establish a working group could be done on a case-by-case basis with a beginning and end to that project and make it more efficient.
And I think the mayor identified that in his proposal or his decision as well, that working groups would be formed for limited life with a beginning and end and clear terms of reference.
So there was a good example of that in the last council where the housing working group was formed. It had 3 meetings, it had specific tasks, it completed the tasks and the working group was disbanded. Coastal, that's another good example.
Tyrone.
Just regarding point number 11, and this is to you, Mary. So what's the process through which the terms of reference are refined? Like, can you just step me quickly through the basic steps of that?
So
please?
we would look at the short brief that we have at the moment and review those and actually just check that against the review that's been done for Wellington, the Wellington review, to make sure that we don't fall into any of those traps or pitfalls. Potentially talk to other councils that have had portfolios to further define them. We would bring them back to councillors for discussion or circulate to councillors for discussion before they were actually set in concrete and put in place.
Sorry, just to follow up, Mr. Beer. So, and that'll happen relatively
quickly.
Cheers. Okay, thank you.
You know, all good? Everyone happy? Right, so now...
An amendment that Tyrone be given a portfolio of homelessness and Andre be given a portfolio of culture and arts and culture.
So I suggest you put that in...
mix them into number 10.
Number 10.
Okay. But as I was saying, Yanni, we don't want to have a portfolio.
So who did you put forward for arts and culture?
Andre. And it's an amendment.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's an amendment to number 9.
So we want to just do we want to take that as an amendment to establish?
Isn't there already an amendment
that's
been put?
So leave number 9. Leave number 9 alone. You're looking at putting what you're suggesting into number 10. Is that right?
No, it's the establishment one. So you're establishing suburban regen, right? And this is also establishing a portfolio for arts and culture for Councillor Andre.
Point of order, Mr.
I'm trying to avoid having this stuff going on and on. It's just going to increase
Could I, as a
point of order on this?
Staff advice would be
there's an amendment on the table
to make this decision ad hoc. It wouldn't be reflect good decision making, which is your expectation under the Local Government Act, to make this ad hoc without advice and without consideration, particularly since you're getting advice back about this.
So I have got Jake.
I think
Sam,
I think what's bogged us down a little bit is the fact that we've established one and we're seeking advice on another. I think that was unhelpful. What may be better, I think, I'm personally of the view that if we're electing champions to champion certain issues, every councillor gets to pick one, you know, and if they want to champion something, that's fine. But in this instance, I think either we established arts and suburban regeneration, arts, culture and heritage, and homelessness, or we take advice on all of it. I'm leaning towards advice, but I think we have to treat all the same.
Councillor McClellan, that would be my advice to you. I think that's a very good point.
So you're saying roll 9 and 10 into each other?
Yes.
Decision making to get advice.
Okie dokie. Sam?
Just one point of clarity, Mary, if possible. Am I right in thinking, though, that the structures are set up at the recommendation of the Mayor? So his legislative ability is to determine the portfolios, the structures and the like?
He does have the ability to establish a committee or portfolio if he so wishes. In this instance, his amendments, he is making these amendments under Schedule 7 though, not under his... So he's made his initial decision, which has been reported to you.
Right.
Under Section 41A, but these amendments are being made under Schedule 7 of the Local Government Act.
Cool. Right, so we're at Pauline's amendment, I feel. Okay, so we have a mover and seconder for Pauline's, wherever it is.
There it is.
Yep, that one there. That Councillor McClellan be appointed as to the Chief Executive Performance Committee. I have a mover and seconder. All those in favour?
Is anyone going to speak on it? Is she going to speak to Amendment Y or?
Debate.
I would have spoken on it if I'd wanted to. I don't think I need to.
All right, well, we
Right,
have
very
debate.
quick.
Yeah, far away. Yep.
Do you want to, Pauline?
No? Oh, well, I might reserve my right to close then.
Oh, you can't close an amendment.
You don't get a right to
Oh,
reply on
amendment.
amendment.
But you can reserve your right to speak later. Yeah, later. Yeah.
Right, well, can I quickly then speak on it? I won't muck about.
Yes.
Yeah, look, I'll vote against this. Nothing against Jake or any of the people at all. It's just that I think the Mayor's exercised his powers under Section 71A of the Act, and that's to have a line in the sand. He's sat through a series of meetings with every single councillor around the table, and I can't begin to imagine how difficult that is to try and collate the hopes and aspirations and skills of all of these members in a workable structure that he believes is going to be best placed to take the city forward. So I think, you know, in the spirit of collaboration, working together, that I'm going to back the Mayor's recommendations and stop trying to essentially build, you know, a horse by committee, because I think, you know, as we all know, the proverbial of that is that you end up with a camel. So there is a line in the sand. I'm prepared to back that. And I think, you know, as we've discussed, this is a start point. You know, if things work, then we can, then that's great. But there will be places to review it and to tinker with it, and I'm really comfortable with that. So it's certainly not set in stone, but I think that it's a start point. And the Mayor's made his recommendations, and I want to give effect to that, because I think it's, you know, I think it does undermine it to start chipping and hacking into it at this point.
It's interesting that Councillor James Goff, who invited Council Chief Executive Dawn Baxendale to a dinner with himself, mayoral candidate Phil Major and Sam MacDonald, are creating a CE Performance Committee with them on it, plus our Deputy Mayor, Councillor Cotter, and I feel that that is clearly a biased grouping of people to be on a CE Performance Committee, and I think we should have at least Councillor McClellan there, and in fact I actually believe we should have one more person to make it a even grouping. So I absolutely support you know, the amendment that Pauline has made.
Yeah, I'll just speak in support of the amendment. There are many good qualities that our mayor has, and one of the things I particularly like is his pragmatism and ability to think on the fly and do things a little bit differently. So I think that that is well within you know, his kind of kaupapa to make changes like that, and I think that that is definitely something that you know, that Phil's style, and that's why I support that motion.
Thank you, and actually I'm going to support everything that Tyrone has just said. I think this is not about sides. This is actually about the right decision, the right people, and the right balance to make very important decisions for the people of Christchurch through this. I'm going to support Pauline's. Thank you for saying what you did. I think it's totally logical, and I thank you for putting your hand up for it, because there's a lot of reading with it. There's a lot of information. You've got to be balanced, and yeah, I totally support it.
Kia ora, thank you. I'd just like to address Councillor Goff's point about it being the Mayor's prerogative, and under the Local Government Act is to establish these things. But also under the Local Government Act, there's the democratic process whereby councillors also get to adjust things as we go, and it's a fundamental part of our democracy that the Mayor is one vote around the table, although they get to lead the decision making and those kind of things. And so there is absolutely nothing wrong with the elected council making adjustments to things where they want to make some improvements. So.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Councillor Stevens there with his comments. Mayor Major is a very pragmatic leader, and I will certainly be supporting the extra member and Jake on this.
Yeah, I think those are very valid points, and we're not asking for a. I have to say this: we're not asking for a major alteration here, yeah, I know, and there's plenty more to come. So it's more, it's a tweak to this committee, but I think that the committee will sit in a more balanced way. It's only 5 members. It's not a clunky committee. I think it'll still be a really well-oiled machine that'll work very well together. So that's why I've moved that. So thanks for your support.
That may have just carried.
So in relation to amendment, sorry. Yeah. In relation to 9 and 10,
yes,
there was a recommendation from.
Oh, so that's another
amendment.
The
potential, so, if yourself and Tim are comfortable with merging those two things together into 10.
You happy with merging 9 and 10 in together?
So that just becomes part of the substantive.
Yep. And that would be for homelessness, arts and culture, and suburban regeneration.
Cool. Can you see all that up there? Okay. So now, is there? Do I now do debate on the whole thing, or not?
Yes.
Yes.
Or do we just? Can we just? I think we're all sort of heading down the right track. You what? It's Christmas. It's Christmas soon. Right, far away.
So on the substantive, again, I'm completely acknowledging the Mayor's desire for a really efficient and effective council where we don't duplicate work and we don't overload staff with just the paperwork of getting meetings organised, that kind of stuff. And I think that's a really good plan. I do, however, have a concern about the use of portfolios due to the Wellington experience. And my key concern is one thing that came up in that one is that they could have been used as a tool to put officers under pressure to change their advice to the council. So portfolio holders have additional access to staff and those kind of things, and I think that's an issue we have to keep an eye on. There's overlapping responsibilities. Councillors were inadequately resourced to actually fulfil their portfolio responsibilities, so we need to look at resourcing. It can create unnecessary work and act against the development of a meaningful, holistic council work program, and that's my key bugbear here. One of the things it led to is that councillors said, that's okay, I don't need to be over the issues for the city because that's someone else's responsibility. And a key takeaway here, a number of councillors identified a benefit of the portfolio system as meaning they did not need to be across the full range of council's activities and issues. This mindset is concerning and in fact contrary to the collective nature of council decision making and the collective responsibility that follows. It is in fact a negative of the system. My concern is that people will say, don't need to know about youth, Tyler's got that. Don't need to worry about climate change, Sarah's got that. And so that's something I think we really need to be aware of. It's one of the reasons I think we need good reporting because none of us can afford to dismiss climate change and not be all over the issues, the facts, how it's going to impact Christchurch, the City Council and the wider community. And so that's a concern I have. We'll work with Mary to make sure that those kind of things are mitigated as far as we can, get regular reporting in and some resourcing. And I hope they go really well, because it is an area I'm passionate about.
I hope so too, because it's a new system, and if we can work together and make it, like, there will be spots which might be a bit light, but if we can keep on top of that and make it go. Tyler.
Kia ora, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to just be noted about the associated risk with having a portfolio, and my hesitancy in picking up the responsibilities of being the champion of that. Not that I don't want it, not that I'm against it. It's just that I want it to be noted that if, for example, which is a major issue right now, is youth crime, and it's not being addressed by council, then I feel like the onus falls on me as a youth portfolio holder. And it's something that I want to be wary of, and also note to the council that the responsibility can be looked to be falling on me and also the council. I just want it to just be communicated.
Fair comment. Mark?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hear what Tyler's saying there about taking on responsibility, but with these portfolios, I'm hoping that I'm reading this right, that we've all still got the ability to feed into that area of portfolio interest, because there's a number of those portfolios that I'm really quite keen on being involved with. So, by all means, liaise with our wider council and bring us all into that process, please.
Timothy.
Thank you. Look, we've got to start off positively and with the right attitude, and it's a real shame that some around the table are saying, oh, no, look, there could be problems. There will be a lot of problems, there will be ironing out, but if we've got the right attitude, none of us are an island. We've got to look after each other for the betterment of Christchurch. And to sit here and if ever you need a hand, whether it's I'm part of the portfolio or not, I'm always here, and I'm sure your colleagues are too. It's about getting for the city. In the last council and the two previous, there were winners and losers, and I guess some who aren't winners, if you want to put it that way, and some that are, things change. I'm going to be really positive. None of us can be experts in anything. No, literally we can't. We've got to learn. I think with solid support in the committees and the portfolios, and that's spreading down and trying to cross-pollinate into those interest areas, into portfolios, that can really work. Those, if you like, a pyramid structure, and then cross over and keep good contact. Good reporting, as Sarah said, whether it's quarterly or 6 monthly or whatever, that will find itself, and some will need to report more often than others. I'm presuming that the health, safety and wellbeing will be a quarterly report, but that really depends on how we're going, because when I set that up, I'll be talking to you as well what you need, but also, more importantly, what the staff need to deliver to you. So I'm really positive on this. I'm looking forward to it, looking forward to working with everyone positively. Cheers.
Thank you, Tim. The one thing is that we must always remember we're all in this together for the good of Christchurch, and I'd hate to see someone coming in with a problem and say zeroing in on Tyler, saying, "Oh, this is all your problem, everyone else run away," because that would really disappoint me. Because we all should be helping each other. So that's very important in my view. Yeah. Victoria.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Reiterating what Tim has said there and what you've just repeated there, Mr. Mayor, about all working together positively as one. I'd like to thank Sarah for raising and sharing that information about the Wellington report, because I wasn't overly familiar with that, and likewise I share your concerns around that as you've mentioned them, but I'd like to think that with the appropriate reporting in place on a regular basis, that should be able to mitigate the risk. Prior to coming into council, one of the things that actually put me off putting my name in was the horror stories that I'd heard about the extreme workloads. So I understand the rationale in terms of trying to reduce some of that, and I'd like to hope that this is going to work for us. So thank you for sharing that information, and I'm looking forward and that this is going to work.
You're right in what you say. I was talking to a person who had been a first-time councillor 2 or 3 times ago, and he said he went mad when he got in because he tried to fix the world, and he went on every committee that he could ever go on and absolutely burned himself out, and you're not going to get any thanks for that, So
likewise, I think that's a real issue, and we have to be very mindful of that.
Yeah, we've all got a lot of life to lead as well. James.
Yeah, look, I'll be brief on this, but I just want to say that I am familiar with the Winder report. You know, I've read it, and it's actually a really interesting report, and there are pros and cons with the portfolio structure. And I think, you know, my objective with this is to take the best of what works and leave what doesn't. So using the learnings from others, I think, will be a beneficial way of navigating that. And look, in the past, the committee structure that we've had, let's be honest, hadn't actually worked so well either. You know, we had committees where staff were genuinely struggling to find items to fill that, and that's not a good use of anyone's time. So I think the portfolio structure is more of a way for individuals with a particular skill set or area of interest to take that lead. It will be what they make of it. It doesn't mean that we start off perfectly, because I think, you know, there is an element of building the aeroplane as we fly, and we'll do that collaboratively and together, and I think we'll get some good outcomes from that. But we've got to start somewhere, and I think this is a good start point. And the other thing too, which we mentioned earlier, is that we will genuinely you know, be accountable around how this is working, what works, what doesn't work, and we can tweak that from there. So, you know, I think that this is something that I'm keen to give a go to. So I'm fully supportive of the recommendations there. Thanks.
Thank Melanie. Oh, sorry, Young. Yep. Go, Mel.
All right, great. I'm not sure if excited is the right word, or that I'm looking forward to it, but I am willing to take the position of Deputy Chair of the Finance Committee.
It'll be great.
As well as attend Te Hononga when the Chair of Finance and Performance Committee is unable to attend. I take heart in the 2-day induction that we had, where we did all agree to work together. But it was a bit disappointing that the committee structure we didn't see before it went public, because I think we could have maybe avoided some of this discussion today. And I do feel that the committees were not necessarily representative of council, and I know that was the case before, but I was a new councillor and didn't, you know, take too much interest in the formation of them, I have to say, the first time round. But we have made some, I think, improvements through discussion both yesterday and through today. So I think that is good. And I do have concerns, though, about some of the committees, because I wasn't aware, as I said before, about the Te Pai Pakari or the Multicultural Committee not continuing, and I understand that. But I would have liked to have heard that those communities had been discussed, or had been talked with first before this committee structure was put forward, because those committees give those communities mana. It shows that council values them. It gives them official channels where what's discussed is recorded in council business, and I find that important, even if the agendas are light and there are improvements that could be made and other things that could be done, especially with the youth committee. I think that the youth action plan is something that really should be followed through with, that we probably didn't do so well last term. So I'm pleased we're looking at advice on those things, and also support the comments about portfolios and what Councillor Peters talked about with that. So I will support this today.
Thank you, Yanni.
Yeah, thank you. I think the reality for those of us who have been around for a few years is that we see different systems get established after each election, and you start to get into a position where you see the same cycle go around, from committees to one council meeting a week, or you know, several a month, and then it changes. So, you know, there has been times in the past where council has looked at portfolios, has looked at having mainly the council meeting being all the decision making, but you know, from my experience and personal preference, I do favour a form of committees, and not having committees of the whole, but actually having groups of people focused on certain issues that can focus on the work program in terms of the council. But I appreciate that we've got a new mayor and that they have powers in terms of the structure that they would like. And, you know, I think we do need to be open-minded to working constructively as a team. And I hate to hear the comment around there'll be winners and losers. I actually think we should all be trying to work together for the success of everyone in the city and everyone around this table, including our staff and our community board. So I'm really open-minded to how we progress, recognising that I have seen some of these structures be reinvented previously, and I just, you know, have some words of caution around the proposals, but let's try and work together and make sure that everyone's got a role to contribute. And I think that will be what will set us apart, is that we're all equally sharing the workload. We have a massive challenge ahead. We've got some of the lowest levels of satisfaction in our recent modern history for this council, and we've got huge challenges around roads and footpaths and doing the basics, which I'd really like to see this council have a very strong focus on getting on top of. And there's nothing really in here that addresses that, but I do signal that for this term, I think one of the major challenges for council is to get on top of our basics, to improve our maintenance and our renewals of our streets, footpaths, parks, and address issues like flooding. And I hope that as we have further discussions around how we might work together, that we can think of what we can do. And if you want any evidence of that concern, you only need to read the following 2 reports, that we don't even have an assessment of our footpath condition, and yet we're spending more money than we have to try to fix things. So, but I'm happy to support what's being put forward today, on the understanding that we can work together to improve it if things aren't working or if things can be made better, understanding that everyone has a role to contribute. And I do think the other thing that's really important is we do look at ways to engage our communities, because sometimes when we just go to a full council meeting, it's hard for the community to interface with council around decisions that get made quite quickly, but doesn't give the community a lot of time to engage. So we also need to consider those processes.
Thank you, Yannick. Kelly?
Thank you. Nice to get an opportunity to speak last, after everybody present has had their go. I found it a really interesting discussion. Personally, I'm comfortable with portfolios. I can see what the Mayor's trying to do, but I'm really impressed by other councillors as a group. Some started out a wee bit cynical, but have kind of come to an agreement that this is a new council, a new day, a new attitude. I really appreciate what Councillor Scandrett said. It's all about attitude, and we've sort of gone the full circle in the last sort of half an hour or so discussing this. And I think if we remember back to those 2 days we spent together and the way we hoped and determined that we would behave moving forward, I feel like we've made a couple of decent steps. So I'd encourage you to continue to be positive in everything you do. It's really good to hear the different sides of the argument. Sarah, appreciate hearing that. I read about that too, and I see central government uses portfolios, and I don't think they lose from that. So it's been a really interesting discussion, and I will support it.
Pauline and Andre.
Yeah, thank you. Just good debate, a good process today. I think we started off on a good foot, that we're all listening to each other respectfully. And just to be reminded that this is an iterative process, so as we develop and settle into our roles, there's opportunities for change and development if required. There is a concern for me that perhaps our 2 council meetings could become quite hefty. We may have to be prepared for some long days, but that will fold into the iterative process as well. So, it's been a good debate today and a good process, and thank you, Mr. Mayor, for working on this and getting it.
And also, I think having longer council meetings may make us a wee bit more efficient.
So there's a method in your madness.
The cunning plan.
Yeah, we'll put those at the start. Andre.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd just like to point out that there's some really important portfolios in here, and Central City Revitalisation is absolutely one of them. And some of the most talked about issues in the Central City is homelessness. It is young people. People exist, they always have, and in Central City they always will. It is also an issue of arts and culture that most of our live music venues that have opened since the earthquakes have had to shut their doors, which doesn't help for revitalising city centres. So I strongly believe that we cannot and will not truly revitalise our city centre without paying significant attention to homelessness, arts and culture, and giving a voice to our young people. Strong supporter of these portfolios. Thank you.
Very much. I'll just finish off. Portfolios are new, and we shouldn't be scared of something new. It's just a general sort of, I don't know, but I was like that when I heard a thing called committees as a whole 3 years ago. I didn't know what the hell it was. But council will be looking at at the key issues that Yanni's brought up, and because they're important going forward, and all of us. And I think we've gone round in it, like Pauline said, we've gone round in the circle, and we've got to where we are. Jake's in on the CE board, and I think it's a good decision by all of us in the end. So I'd like to put the motion out. Just remember that 9 and 10 are added together.
And it becomes 10.
Yeah, it becomes 10. There was
Yes, and
9
was deleted. And
yeah, okay, cool. So I'd like to, nothing else, I'd like to put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
All those against?
That's carried. You need to say it's carried.
That's carried, thank you. Start the way we mean to carry on.
Item 6 next.
Righto, now we're on there. Welcome, Peter, number 6.